Hi everyone, Teddy Baldessar here with my colleague Danny Milton. Danny, good to see you, man.
Hey Teddy, thanks for having me.
First time on the channel, so you have just joined us in the past 5 months as the VP of Content. You've been in the industry, we've known each other for a while, but first, before we dive into the video today and explain the rules, want to tell us a little more about yourself, what you've been doing, what you've been working on? I think that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy, first of all, it's great to be on the channel, great to be in this video with you. You know, it's been an amazing 5-month ride. I think in this time, I've been a bit behind the scenes, kind of building things up on the editorial side. We're building an amazing content team. We have just brought on Bilal Khan as our editor-in-chief. We've had Blake Bettner as our contributor. We have Aaron Wilborn as one of our editors, and the team just keeps growing and just things are really cooking in terms of the written content, the video content, and it's great to kind of be here today and have some fun with watches to kind of get in front of things, even though I've been sort of behind them for the past few months.
You're getting in front of things right now. We're actually gonna put you in the spotlight today and to the test. We're gonna build a $7,000 watch collection. So this is what we're hoping to do. 4 watches, and we cannot go over $7,000.
Okay.
So retail pricing, $7,000, those are the rules.
No cheating, you're saying?
No cheating.
Okay.
Absolutely no cheating.
Okay.
We also are going to have 4 different buckets that we need to pick watches from. So we have a sports category, then we have a dress category, a wild card category, which we will say is just mostly a watch that can be anything we'd like. So there's no rigid rules that we have to follow there. And then we have the beater category. So 4 watches each, then we get to pick your collection versus my collection.
All right, Teddy, I can't promise you that I fully understand the rules. No, I'm kidding.
I think I laid those out pretty clearly.
I will try my best not to cheat, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what
All
happens.
right, it's on. Let's do this.
So let's kick it off with the sports watch category. So what did you pick first up? And I'll let you go first because, you know, first time on the channel, welcome guests, let's go. What do you have?
All right, Teddy. So for my first watch, I went with the Oris Diver 65 date 40 millimeter in the forest green, which is one of the newer Diver 65 dial variations. And I pick it for a couple of reasons. 1, heritage. 2, it's just a capable, kind of really well-fitting dive watch. And green is sort of in. It's that dial color that's in a lot of ways. Oris doing things with the Kermit. I'm a big fan of the Omega Seamaster Diver 300M. I have a green dial version, so I have a certain fondness for green divers. And so it's hard to go wrong. And at $2,700,
Using a big amount of your budget here.
it is gonna be my most expensive watch of the bunch, but I really wanted to go for it for a sport watch, because sport watch, gotta put it to the test. And for me, a sport watch and building a collection needs to be a lifer. It's a good lifer pick.
And you can also say with the Oris Diver 65, it was one of the key contributors to the craze that we're seeing now with vintage revival of dive watches.
I remember that sort of pinnacle moment. It was the Arabic numerals on the dial and that real stylized sort of mid-century look. They've really come and matured that look a lot. This is at this point, it's vintage meets modern in a really timeless package for me.
Yeah, and 40 millimeters is a good size for that.
Great size. All right, Teddy, that means I picked my sports watch. Throwing it back to you. Where are you going?
So I'm also looking back to mid-20th century with dive watches, but I'm gonna spend a little bit less.
Okay.
A little bit less. I'm looking at the Doxa Sub 200. So this is a watch, it's a 42 millimeter case, but it wears nothing like it. It's 46 millimeters. And I look at Doxa, and a lot of people say, where do you start with the Doxa? I don't know if there's necessarily a perfect path to go down with the brand, but this would be my choice for a couple of reasons. One is that it is maybe not thought about as much as the Sub 300, 300T, but Doxa as a brand, they were a pioneer for many of the developments of dive watches in the 1960s and 70s. You had helium escape valve, pioneer there, different bezel types. It was used by people of the profession that I would say really set a tone for what is adopted by other people. You have US Navy SEAL divers or US Navy divers. You had French military also using these pieces, and then Jacques Cousteau connection. And I like this dial color. So the Sub 200 is the entry point for just over $1,000. But the Shark Hunter dial, black dial, which was actually what I think I've heard is used by Cousteau's team. That was their favorite dial that they would use.
That's amazing. Wow.
So $1,100, Salida movement, wears like I say a 40 millimeter on case. It has a little bit of that Seiko diver theme here with how it wears. And I think for a Swiss watch, dive watch, you could argue for $1,000, it's on a short list.
For sure, I like that you picked on the Beads of Rice bracelet. I think there's options here. Obviously, rubber is a strong choice as well, which you could definitely go for.
And it's only like $50 difference.
Totally.
So I decided to spend a little bit more money to get it. The only point of criticism I might have with these is just the loom is not very good for a dive watch. I will say that for the sub 200 compared to some of the other designs that they have. And in the class, some people might be a little bit hard on that because it's more of a stamped design, but otherwise, helps set a standard for $1,000.
Yeah, that's 2 heritage picks in the sport watch category. Not sure what that says about us necessarily, but
I'm saving some money though.
Sure, you definitely are. You definitely
So
are.
I have more to play with for the rest of the game.
That is true. So that puts me in dress watch.
Dress watch, move along.
Now, I thought about this for a while. Again, now I've invested $2,700 in the collection. I had to think about where I was going, and it became pretty obvious Longines was the territory I wanted to jump into, and I picked the Longines sector dial. This watch is a watch that I have long pined over in real life, not just for the purposes of this exercise. Now, there's a little bit of cheating happening here, and I'll go ahead and take the sort of like, pull back the curtain for the audience, but typically you would find this on a strap.
Yes.
I happen to think it looks fantastic on this bracelet. I think it really just livens up the watch. You and I have talked about this. It makes it a completely different watch.
Completely.
But what I love about the sector dial is it is a great illustration of how Longines can pull from its heritage. It's in its heritage collection, but Longines' back catalog of designs is potentially unmatched in the industry. And to have this sort of core sector dial design, the 12, 3, 6, and 9, the 6 is sort of obscured by the sub-seconds. It's fantastic. There's so much visual intrigue to this dial, and is kind of, even though it's a little larger than some might consider to be perfect for a dress watch, for me in the modern context might be perfect.
38.5mm case, you're getting 70 hours plus on power reserve. Yep. Bracelet is phenomenal on that. You have the black dial, you're going for the silver dial, which is personally, I love that design.
Yes.
And you mentioned just the history too with Longines. A lot of brands, you're pulling from the past, but it might not be your past. I think that's fine. I don't think we should, put down brands for trying to recreate something from the past, but for Longines, it's this different animal where they're looking directly at what they did.
Yes.
Which is a different equation. And you could argue of any brand in the industry, maybe the most historically impactful brand, and right there, along with some of the biggest names in the industry, we just don't give them enough credit.
People don't realize what a powerhouse, like a juggernaut of a brand Longines was in, say, the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, to be honest. It's just been recent memory where it's trailed off, but I think now the brand is on a serious upswing.
Such a fan of that.
Yeah,
I actually own that watch personally, so good job.
Thank you. Thanks,
Good job.
Teddy.
Now we're gonna get into another dress piece, right? Mm-hmm. So my dress pick, again, I'm saving some money. So I have more to play with as we continue.
Oh,
to
that's
go
right.
here.
I didn't even mention this. Was $2,500
Yes.
in my book. So that is another big chunk of change.
If we're talking about on the strap, and then the bracelet's a little bit more.
Right. That's
a little
true.
Bit more,
That's true.
So it depends on what we're talking here. We'll let it slide.
I said I would try to follow the rules. I said I would try.
Danny's breaking the rules on his first attempt.
I am trying.
Okay. Now, my pick for dress watch.
Yep.
So I am looking at a piece that probably, if I had to say, I don't know if we'd be sitting next to each other if it wasn't for this design. $7,000 to spend. I'm thinking about these 4 categories, and I'm thinking about what's available for me. Dress watch was tough because I was thinking Longines, but then I'm using a lot of my budget. I think I'm gonna go here with the Junghans Max Bill. Now the Junghans Max Bill, this was the watch that I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was entranced immediately. There was something about this that just spoke to me, even as a non-watch person, because I was earlier on in my collecting journey when I started seeing this watch, and it just resonated immediately. I don't know what it was at the time, but then after I learned about Max Bill, the wall clock design, and how this was adapted to a wristwatch, you were able to connect the dots of why I liked it so much. There was the curvature of the dial, which to me almost creates the same feel of a wall clock. It jumps out at you. The silhouette, there's no lugs on, like basically no lugs on this design. You can kind of just see it. I mean, they're just tucked behind this little bulbous case. You can't even see them. The crown is kind of diminutive. It's just a small little thing. And you just get this giant dial. The numerals are laid out in a beautiful way. The space is there, symmetry is there. And this is for around $1,350. It's an icon. It's an icon, and you can get that for that price. You now have them transitioning to sapphire crystals. And I remember when I was looking at just like the Max Bill designs, and this was like my first purchase, like the Max Bill designs, over $1,000.
Yep.
And it made me realize like I can keep going down this path and anything's possible. It's like Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. I can keep spending money. It established that new standard of what I'd be willing to spend. And this was the gateway. And I think for good reason, because this is a timeless design and it still speaks to me to this day. I love talking about it.
It's a watch that in person honestly plays so differently than it does in photo or video.
Totally
To
agree.
really appreciate the domed sort of design and how the dial curves in itself is, for the money, really hard to do.
Yeah, it's like tucked back. You can kind of
Yes.
see it just
Like a slope effect. It's really, really amazing.
Yeah, I love that watch. I love that watch. So that's my pick.
And so that price is
$1,350.
okay. So you're really doing you're being far more conservative.
So
than
I
am
believe
so
in my first 2 picks,
Yeah.
I have spent less than each one of your individual picks. I'm going a different path here than Danny.
I'm 2/3 into my budget, just to be clear.
Yeah,
and 2 watches.
So you have a lot of work
yeah,
to do here.
Yeah, and 2 watches to go. So that
Wild
brings
card.
us to wild card. Wild card, for me, if it's kind of open to anything, I want to diversify the collection I'm building here. So far I've got a dive watch, I've got a traditional dress watch. I'm gonna get funky. And I'm going with Nivada Grenchen, the F77. This is a recent release from the brand. This is not what I would say anybody really thinks of when they think of Nivada Grenchen. You're probably thinking the Pac-Man Depth Master. You're thinking the Super Antarctic, kind of a field watch design.
Some of their Chronomaster, all that.
Of course, the Chronomaster for sure. This is, like a lot of brands are doing, apparently Nivada's gotten its archives, an integrated bracelet steel sports watch with serious heritage from the 1970s. And I think this is an amazing execution of, similar to what I said about Longines, a brand taking a 1-to-1 sizing ratio of bracelet, but kind of upgrading the dial. And here I picked this watch because of the meteorite dial. And at $1,390, if I'm not mistaken, you're getting the steel bracelet, a milled clasp, and a 37mm watch. This feels vintage to me. When I hold it in the hand, this is a vintage watch.
You were the person that actually put me more onto these. Like I'd seen these, but you were like very adamant about like putting these on my radar, and rightfully so. I can see why you're interested in something like this.
And I don't want to say it because it's probably something that shouldn't be said, but if you are someone looking for that sort of Royal Oak alternative from a brand that isn't, new to market, but has that historical, track record, and this really is an archival piece, this kind of scratches that itch in a way that doesn't feel wrong.
No, I totally get that. And I think we lump in all the integrated steel sports watches together, or just integrated sports watches together as all being going after the Royal Oak DNA, but there are multiple interpretations of that 1970s era. And
Yes.
you're saying here, like a brand, they were all developing their own twist on that design.
Yes.
And I think we ultimately just always look to the Royal Oak. This definitely has more of that theme with like the bezel design and the screws. I see
Yes.
more of it here, but it also still is, it's enough of its own thing.
It is, and it has a nice 3-link bracelet design that tapers in a really uniquely 70s kind of way, but it all comes back to the meteorite dial for me. Sort of the stark monochromatic color of it. I don't know, there's something about it, because this does come in stone dial variations, it has textured pattern dial variations, but I landed on the meteorite.
All right, good pick, sir. Good pick. So you spend a little bit less money there. Now I'm gonna start spending some money. I'm going for my wild card. It's not really a crazy watch. This is not an insane watch to think about. You went, meteorite dial, you're having a little more fun with your craziness. Maybe I'll save that for later. I think for now though, I wanna get a cornerstone to the collection. I wanna get that one piece that can do multiple things for me, and that is the Longines Spirit Zulu Time. This was a watch that I think probably tipped the scale, changed the game. The landscape changed immediately after it was released. First, you had the 42mm option. I'm here looking at the 39mm option. To get back to that point you mentioned and we were talking about with like Longines and their history, the Zulu, in their archive, 1925.
Yes.
They had a watch with dual time zone tracking functionality. That is a quarter century before most people think about GMTs and what was happening in the 1950s with other brands like Rolex, Glycine, things of that sort. They're doing this in 1925. And this is just one example of many from this brand. But what you're getting in a modern package is the roots in aviation history with a different design style that you talk about the Tudor Black Bay, GMTs, those are more to the dive style. What if you want to go more for the aviation?
Yes.
This is what this represents. You're just over $3,000. You get over 70 hours of power reserve. This is the L844.4 movement on the inside, COSC certified, silicon balance spring, true GMT.
True GMT.
That's where we're talking about changing the landscape. This is what really helped do that, because this was before the 4R34. This was in that time. You're not seeing many brands jump to this, and then you also have Longines. They're getting proprietary movements and capabilities because of their relationship with Etta being inside the Swatch Group.
Of course.
It's an amazing watch. Ceramic bezel. This is the green version, which there's also the blue, there's also the black. We also saw the titanium recent,
yes.
which is a very sharp looking watch. You're still getting great water resistance. So this could be an everyday, but it's my travel watch. This could be my staple piece. And I also love this range of like $3,000 to $5,000 for a GMT. I think that's where you see a lot of concentration of value.
Yes.
And then you have to take another leap quite a bit up to start seeing it a bit more, except maybe for Grand Seiko, they have a lot throughout the journey going
Sure.
up from $7,000 to $10,000, but a lot of brands, they start to appear more GMTs at higher end. But Longines is right there and setting the stage for what can you get for the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both remember when the Spirit came out in general, and
Yes.
I feel like it was Longines pivoting away from just heritage design to a new collection that captured
Yes.
the essence of the heritage. I don't think anyone saw this coming, and when it did come out, especially at 39 millimeters, that is, you're really taking aim at a segment of the watch market with the true GMT capability. But what I love about this watch is it has its own very distinct design language. I mean, yeah, it's a tried and true method of having the 24-hour bezel, having the GMT hand, but I love the Arabic numerals, the applied numerals. I think it all feels that cosmopolitan sort of mid-century feel that you want from a GMT watch. And like you said, I mean, it's calling on a century's worth of history.
And there's also some slick features too. Like you have multiple points of micro adjustment,
Yes.
you have 5 points of micro adjustment. Clasp is pretty nice. I mean, it's not T-foot level, but it's very good. You also have quick release on the bracelet. So if you wanted to swap this out on another strap,
And a
very
closed
easy to do.
case back. I mean, no, you can't engrave that case back because there's a lot happening back there, but I still have that romantic ideal of a tool watch having a closed case back, and I love that Longines sort of sticks with that. It was the same with my dress watch pick. And I think Longines is actually the only place where you and I have crossover of brand in our two collections here.
It's a good sweet spot. It makes sense because
Yeah.
if you're looking to spend $2,000 to $3,000 in the market, it's a go-to brand. They have so much diversity, and that's why they're such a large brand too.
For sure.
All right, so I spent $3,000 plus, $3,150 to be precise. Now we get into final pick. We're gonna call this our beater.
Yep.
Now, beaters for some might be a derogatory term. I don't think it is. What I see that as is the watch that is a fraction of the total sum of what the value of your collection is. You'd be willing to maybe beat this one up a little bit differently compared to some of your other watches. It's not to say that they're bad watches.
Not at
it's
all.
just to say that this is a smaller part of our world, and we want to maximize as much as possible and can allow it to take a beating. That's what we're looking for here.
So interestingly enough, my collection has actually gone down in price with each subsequent pick that I've made. And this one, it goes off a cliff. So I have now chosen the Seiko 5 SSK 001. This is from the SKX-esque line of watches here. And what that means is the SKX 007, 009 was sort of a cornerstone watch for a lot of watch collectors. It's a watch that I had early in my collecting journey. It was
Same.
a ISO certified dive watch that you could find, out in the world for around $250. Seiko discontinued that watch and introduced a whole new line of Seiko 5s that played on that heritage, mostly divers at the beginning. And then they released the SSK 001, the SSK 003, the SSK 005.
Correct.
And so what you had was 3 color variations on a new GMT version of that SKX design language. And this watch is retail $475. This is where I really break the rules. I'm really sorry. But this watch, we do carry it.
Cheating. Cheating.
We do sell it for $360, and
We'll let it slide.
I may have taken that into account when building my collection, but my goodness, this watch, it is a cliche to say that something punches above its weight, but what Seiko has done with this, unlike your Longines, this is not a true GMT.
Yes.
This is what some might refer to as a caller GMT. That means that the GMT hand is what is independently operable on this watch instead of the hour hand. And in many ways, it's the kind of GMT that I would use. I have family that's overseas. I would actually set my GMT hand independently to what their time is. I would keep my local time the way it is. I can monitor it very easily. You can also monitor it from the 24-hour bezel. This has a friction fit bezel, a smooth turning friction fit, which I love. It actually harkens back to the vintage Submariners like the one I'm wearing now. So that's has that kind of romantic ideal for me. A Cyclops date window, which I know for some is, but I think it's well executed.
I dig it.
It's really
hate the
well
Cyclops.
executed here.
I'm against the Cyclops hate.
Yeah, I'm not for it by any means. Also, as someone who had an SKX 007 on the Jubilee style bracelet, everyone knows the sort of like tried and true thing is you jangle it around, it rattles. This has solid end links on it, and the whole thing just feels so much more substantial. Sure, you still have a stamped clasp, but you have You have the double enclosure, you have that security, and this is the kind of watch, I mean, you define what a beater is. This is a watch that, as someone who travels as often as you and I do, this is the kind of watch I could really bring with me on those trips. I can beat it up, as it were, and I can go swimming with it. I can just live with it and feel really good. I can't say enough about the SSK 001.
That is a watch very similar to what I was talking about the Longines, but for its price category.
Yeah.
Right. It's set. The 4034 was one of the movements, along with the Miyota 9075 that came out with the Bull of a Wilton, I believe was the first one, that changed the game under $1,000 for GMTs. And we can play this game, Caller GMT, Traveler GMT, True GMT, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
To have a GMT function in a watch like this under $500, or what we're saying $360 because you are cheating.
True, I'll take it.
But no, this is an amazing watch.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
unbelievable. And it set the stage for what you can get for under 500. I also just like how clean this design is with the bezel action, just like that colorway is
It
really,
is
really nice.
Seiko design language, and sure, the 4R34 movement isn't the most accurate, but that is
Yes.
something that we've come to know about Seiko. And to be honest, despite what the specs may tell you about how inaccurate it might be, they very often run
Yes.
far above what the specs would suggest on the sheet. And I like to tip my hat to Seiko for at least being honest on the face of it, what it could be. And they end up, in my experience with these movements is they're fine. They're more than adequate for what they call for.
Okay, so now my beater. I want to zoom out for a moment.
Okay, zoom out.
I want to zoom out because for this watch, to arrive here is somewhat strange because it's not the first thing most people think of when thinking of this collection.
Definitely not. I know where you're going.
2021, you have the Tissot PRX. We talked about this integrated sports watch design. Tissot, I give them credit, is the first larger brand under $1,000 to recognize that there's a huge opportunity here. And for them to have the foresight, probably on production, they were thinking about this in 2019, 2018, the PRX should be a thing.
Yes.
They went back in their archive, 1979, the C-Star with the PRX. And they come out with it first in quartz, and then they come out with a Powermatic version. I would say under $1,000, it might be the most important watch in the last 5 years for getting more collectors into the hobby. Also thinking about it at scale, because there are so many people that fell in love with the PRX. But then they came out something recently that very different, and it also infuses another part of what they've done recently, which is try some different cases. So last year they came out with the Citadel, which was this wild, colorful, punchy, different design that it had a regatta timer. It was out there.
It's crazy.
But it had this forged carbon case. What if you infuse that idea with a PRX? That's where you get the PRX carbon. And that just came out. It's a little higher of a price point, so you're getting closer to $1,000. So my beater is double the price of what your beater is. But I get resistance on scratches with the forged carbon case. Also with this new PRX, which is really interesting, I think, for some people that might not be aware of this, it uses a higher grade of the Powermatic movement. So you're still getting 80 hours of power reserve, but this is the .811 of the C07
That's right.
series. And that is the first time in the PRX's history that they're introducing that movement into this collection. That is coming with the silicon balance spring. If you're familiar with that movement, it's inside the Tissot Gentleman, and is why it's such a value play as well. But this gives me something that's a little bit more playful compared to the rest of my collection, because I'm dealing with green, black, and white. What if I just go for a forged carbon case to top everything out?
It's a wild choice for you.
It is a wild choice, but the PRX is such an amazing design under $1,000. I get a different case material, the upgraded movement, a lot to like, and I save some money.
Yeah, that's true. You have been far more economical in here, and you didn't cheat at all. So I got to hand it to you.
Economics and watches rarely ever agree with each other.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Except for today.
Except for today. But that was the way I was thinking about this. So let's go through. You want to recap some of your picks? I'll recap my picks, and then we can have those reveal on screen for people. Because what I want people to vote on is who wins. This is Danny's first time on the channel.
It is.
I put him to the test. $7,000. How would he spend his money? This is how we're doing it. So leave some comments down below. We can also maybe incorporate a poll.
We should.
We're gonna actually make an official poll. You're gonna vote in the links in the description. Click on that, vote. Who won, Danny or myself? People, I think, they always vote against me because they just want to see me get upset all the time.
I don't know. I didn't follow the rules entirely, so I get it, guys. I get it.
I will let it slide. I think you've fended very well for yourself today. But go ahead, go through your picks.
So in order today, and again, this is descending order, just it by happenstance. I started with my sport watch category with the Oris Diver 65 40mm in forest green. I then moved on to the Longines sector dial with the silver dial. Technically speaking, my choice is on the black strap, even though today we're looking at it on the bracelet, just to keep things within budget. I then moved on to my wild card pick, which was the Nivada Grenchen F77 with a meteorite dial. And then rounding things out was my beater watch, which is the Seiko SSK 001 GMT. So that brings my grand total, however you want to measure this, to $6,950.
We'll let it slide. We'll let it slide, it counts. Let's go through mine. So first off, went with the Doxa Sub 200 with the Shark Hunter dial for my sports pick. Then I move into polar opposite in many ways with the Junghans Max Bill, automatic, no date, $1,350. Then I take a jump up to the Longines Spirit Zulu Time with the green dial, 39 millimeters, and then I close out with the PRX Carbon Edition for my beater. And that brings my total to $6,585. So I came short, quite a bit short. You maximized your budget more.
I did, I hit the ceiling for sure.
One other thing, Danny, so you've come all the way to Cleveland, and we've been working together now for several months. We've tested you here. I want to do one other thing before you go.
Okay.
Here's the next ask. How about you pick one watch, we're here in the store, one watch if you're going to build a collection, $7,000, no more than $7,000.
So I have to use my budget, my $7,000 budget on one single watch.
Yes, so say that this doesn't exist now. You have $7,000 new dollars and you're just going to spend it all on one watch, because that is a philosophy of many people, like just maximize my budget,
sure,
spend as much money as possible and just get one watch. How would you do it?
I think I know what I would do. You gotta give me a second to at least look around and examine. I have a good idea where I'm headed though.
Let's add even some more theater to this.
Okay.
More theater, because I know you're a cinema guy.
Sure.
So let's add some theater. Let's flip a coin, and whoever flips the coin and calls it, then would be able to choose if they want to go first. And then if that person chooses from one of the brands in the store, because we have 4 flagship brands in here, that will prevent that other person from being able to pick that same brand.
So whatever brand the first person picks is off limits to the
Exactly.
next. Okay.
So this coin flip is very important for determining who's going to be able to pick first.
All right, I think let's do it.
Do you have a coin, sir?
I happen to have a coin on me right now.
Very good.
All right, are we ready?
So who's going to call?
You're going to call it. I'm going to flip it, you're going to call it in the air.
Tails never fails.
All right, you ready?
Tails.
It is tails.
Okay. All right, tails.
All
Tails
right, so Teddy chooses first.
Let me take a moment. But here,
All right.
you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna cut here. Let me go look around a little bit, and then we can determine what we want to pick.
All right, we'll see you guys soon.
Okay, Danny, so I was thinking about where I wanted to go. We were talking about front, but I think I want to go Omega.
I can see we're headed in that direction.
We are headed in that direction, so it's like we're thinking about this very clearly. I have a Speedmaster on my wrist. Now, here's my thought, though. Only 50 meters of water resistance. Chronograph absolutely could be my one watch. I have one on my wrist, but let's be a little bit different.
I think we should.
I'm going over to Seamaster. There's a few places to go. If I go Diver 300, that's getting me closer to 6,000 than it would to 7,000. So I think I'm gonna head over here. I'll talk about my rationale a little bit later, but I wanna go Aquaterra.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Going Aquaterra. I'll share reasons why later, but what's important here is that you can no longer pick Omega because of that coin flip, sir.
Yeah, the moment we came to this side of the store, I knew Omega was off the table for me. But that's okay, Teddy, it's okay, because I have ideas of my own.
All right, well, let's go see what you have in mind.
All right. Teddy, I am taking you to the polar opposite end of the store. As you can see, I've directed us toward Grand Seiko, and the moment you took Omega off the table, I knew this is where I wanted to go.
So where are we going? So we're going to this front display here.
I know exactly which watch I'm headed for.
SBGA 413.
Yes,
Good-
sir.
Good
Yes,
choice, sir.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can do my job and open up a display properly. All right, hasn't failed me yet. All right, so we have our 2 picks.
Yep.
Let's head back over to the table and then reveal them and give some reasoning behind why we took
All right, let's do it.
So we have returned, and we have our 2 watches for $7,000. Since I was able to hit the store first, shall I go first?
Yes, because you took a big brand off the table.
I did,
Yeah.
I did. And I was going back and forth. I mean, I love all the brands in here. Glasucci is probably off limits given that I don't have as many options here for 7,000, but I mean, Breitling, Grand Seiko, Omega, there's a lot to choose from. I went with something that was top of mind because of recent history and this just being released.
It's a watch you and I talked about a lot this year.
And it's a phenomenal watch. This is the new Omega Aquaterra Black Lacquer. So this is basically taking some different technologies from the brand. You have what they've been doing with the lacquer dials as of late. We've seen that with the Speedmaster.
Yes, we have.
We've seen also with the Shades edition, some different dial making process. So infuse some of the concepts of both of those into one, because you have the new updated bracelet. So this has more of these rounded center links versus the teakwood, which is more of like this flat link design. And then you are getting this black lacquer dial, which, strange to say, because you look at this and like, it's a simple black dial.
Black
Omega,
dial, yeah.
But we actually have not had this.
No.
Which is unbelievable. And if I'm thinking about, if I was going for a single watch, $7,000 to spend, I want versatility. Black, you could argue, maybe navy, but this simple design, no design going with it with like a textured surface, just a simple glossy texture, or simple glossy nature to it. It works in pretty much every scenario possible. You're getting an 8800 movement.
I know where you're going now. You're going to tell me about the clasp, yeah?
Well, I was going to talk about
Yeah.
that. I mean, if you want to talk about it, we can.
It's something we talked about a lot together as well.
People often criticize the micro adjustment system on Omega watches, especially for these like butterfly type of designs. Now, I think they could have probably done more, but I prefer this than
Yes.
not having the option. This is going to allow you to have some relief throughout the day. So this does feature micro adjustment in the clasp. It's pretty slick how they're able to do it.
And a butterfly clasp, no less, which is really, really interesting.
And difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
I don't think people give manufacturers enough credit for having to navigate this, because you're trying to not have this bubble look on the backside of the bracelet.
Yep.
Because that will get in the way of this elegant look. If you're gonna go for this style and design of a clasp, you don't wanna add any extra weight and bulk on that side. So they were able to do it. I think that's a huge value point. Your 8800 movement. This is also available in a 41. I decided to go for the 38. I just like this size, the proportions of the case. You're still getting great water resistance, master chronometer watch. This can do anything.
Yeah, the arrow markers pop, the trapezoidal markers pop off of the lacquer dial.
Almost more so than the teakwood design.
Definitely.
And I'm a huge fan of the teakwood design, but this is potentially a sign of the future. I don't know what Omega's doing, but I could see them doing this style of lacquer in a variety of different colors in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's my pick. I'm looking at what you decided on, and I think this was in the running for me too. It's a safe choice, and it's weird to say that because of what's going on with this dial.
I agree. You and I went just geographically opposite ends of the store.
Yes.
And the moment that Omega got taken off the board, this was right at the top of my list regardless. I went with the SBGA 413 Grand Seiko, the Shunbun. This is the Seasons Collection spring dial. It is a titanium case, titanium bracelet, and what you have is this pink hue, which isn't a true pink. I mean, it almost is off-white in certain lights, but when the light hits it just right, this is a watch that I have a few friends who have this watch. Every time I see it, I think, why don't I have this watch? And today, when this sort of challenge came to me, even if I had Omega available, I think just given where I've been thinking about this watch, I was gonna choose it. You get spring drive, which technologically speaking, unmatched, unrivaled. Grand Seiko is really on its own when it comes to spring drive.
Agreed.
At $6,600, I am getting a level of dial finishing that I know this is like, again, the thing you say about Grand Seiko, but it's not untrue. This dial is gorgeous. You have the dark of the titanium case, plus the movement inside. It's so hard to go wrong at this price.
I love this watch. I document the story about how when I saw this for the first time, I wanted to cover the SPGA 415, and when the Four Seasons collection came out, I was like, hey, Grand Seiko, like, I'd love to be able to cover one of these watches, and I reached out with the 415 because I saw the renders of this and it's like pink. I'm like, I don't.
Really pink in renders, yep.
By mistake, they sent me this watch. And then I opened it up and I was blown away. It's now my favorite of the Four Seasons collection, and it seems like that's the case for many people. I know that this is in the running for the best seller for the brand, and rightfully so. You're getting 100 meters of water resistance. It's more versatile than you would suspect. It's more silver than it is pink in most conditions.
Yes.
And you talked about spring drive, the finishing on the case, and I always like to say this too now, is where do you get for a watch in this segment, titanium bracelet and case? Grand Seiko is the introduction for this idea in the luxury segment.
Definitely.
And that's like the first time when people might be confronted with what does this look like? And it also is so strange too, because you mentioned the tones of titanium. The tones on Grand Seiko are also a little bit different, and the way that they're able to finish it. It looks like stainless steel.
It does. And then you pick it up.
And you pick it up.
And it's got that lightness to it. I think you did the same thing I did. Water resistance, if I'm having to spend $7,000 on a single watch, became very important to me. Because I know we didn't set this as a rule, but for some reason my mind immediately goes to, I'm building a one watch collection.
Yes,
and
you are.
that's not technically what we set out to do, but in any moment that I'm trying to do that, the fact that the Grand Seiko, it toes the line between what sort of dress is in some ways. You don't have lume on a watch like this, it's not the point. And the polishing in any Grand Seiko, in the dark, you can sometimes often read what the time is. And so the markers give that to you here, the polished markers, the polished hands. Yeah, I mean, I'm smitten, man. I really am.
Could be your best choice of the day. And that wasn't even on the agenda for you. I threw that up as a last.
That just happened. Yeah, that just happened.
Good work, Danny, good work. So I'm gonna also add to the poll, we're gonna have 2 questions in the poll. What collection do you like more as the 4-watch collection? What collection do you like more as the single watch collection? So this gives us both 2 opportunities to win. So maybe it's split, so we both are winners. We both get a participation trophy.
We could both win. I love that. It brings you back to the old days.
Everybody wins. Everybody wins, just like T-ball back in the day.
Thanks, Teddy.
Well, thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, Teddy.
Good work today.
Appreciate it.